All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started on our CEJA reporting office hours call here. Today we'll be we'll be walking through intake, but I did want to go over some updates to the system and open it up to Q&A. So I want to make sure I got the dates right here. I think we should see what I'm about to go over. Yes, so the following updates we should see in production now. But let me go over to our test environment and walk through some of these here. So there was an error where the customer export, let me run this here. Hopefully it won't be too many. Filter this down a little bit. Please. Okay, yeah, this will be much easier. Okay, so there was an issue in the customer export where a couple of the dates were not aligned. And once this opens up here, we can bring this over here. So our test spreadsheet here, but there's a couple columns for that we've added. Yeah, the completion date and the exit date. So completion, of course, refers to that first button on the program completion tab for the training, and then the exit date, when the customers exited from the program. And these weren't consistent with what was entered in their kind of respective fields there on the program completion page, that training completion status and the program exit status, but that's been updated and that should be aligned now. Let's see, the next one, we've had it brought up a few times in some of the recent office hours calls, but is in the dashboard. There was some inconsistency with the case note section here, where we have the different intervals for follow up with a case note, where the numbers here weren't matching what was in fact on the program completion tab for which item needed to be which interval we needed to leave a case note for. And so we've updated that logic, so that should be a lot more intuitive when referring from case notes on the dashboard and what the program completion follow-up page is indicating. We also had a issue where, let me pull this screenshot over here. In some cases, when a customer, this is from the progress overview page, when the customer has a program exit status of exited, there was a red flag for some reason, even though if they're exited, that should be green. So we've corrected that as well. So that was just a minor update there. We also had a issue kind of moving into services in the career plan with the way that certain credentials were added or tagged. There would be a label for trades futures NC3 certification, even though that was not what was selected. But that tag was corrected with the data fix. So I think that was just one grantee who had noticed that. But just in case you'd seen that when you were adding a credential, that should be corrected now. Let's see, the next update, I believe this was happening, I think we discovered this during our call or a previous call here, but it was on the transition outcomes section. So let me open up a customer record here. It was when we were adding a training or other training as a transition outcome and leaving a follow-up. So for example here, so for other training, we have our entry here, we have our status enrolled, and then the date here. And when we would add another status, here, let me just enter some dates here. It was when we were adding another status that instead of we see this transition outcome updated, we were getting an error message. So that's been updated as well. And then okay, so I'm logged in as ClimateWorks. And then another update specific to ClimateWorks was updating the logic for the completion type section here. If we were to, or wait, I might be getting ahead of myself. This is, we've already talked about this one before. Yes, this is the, okay, yeah, updating cohorts, which I do want to circle back to after some of our updates and before I open it up to questions, because there have been a few things that came in that I wanted to note with cohorts. So yeah, so we'll circle back to that. But let me switch over to a Workforce Hub account because we did update the logic for one of the completion types. Workforce hubs. So this would be, let's see. Let me open up this record here. Okay, so we've updated the logic that if we mark a customer as complete and select the type, successful placement without bridge training completion here, that in this third row here, we have, before it just used to be a job placement or registered apprenticeship program in clean energy. But we've now added or opened a clean energy business as a transition outcome into the system. And so that is looking at this transition outcome that we've added here. So we've updated the logic for that in Workforce Hubs. And tied to that, we switch over to the plan versus actual because we're also pulling that in now as a, let's see, which record were they with? Richland, okay. We're now pulling that into the plan versus actual. Let's see. Go down to our outcomes here. Oh, I need to go down a little bit further. In the program completion scenarios, yes. No, hang on a second. I think I'm looking at, I got too many things open here. Just want to make sure that I'm letting you know where this is getting added here. So I might be, thought we had written out where this was added, but sorry, one moment, everybody. Okay, I got hung up looking at some text related to this, but um, yes, we're now including in the program completion scenarios the open a business in 1, 2, 3. So yeah, if they have opened a business in clean energy, they would be populating, depending on the completion type, they'd be populating in one of these three program completion scenario rows there. And then let's see, this is for, if I go to the transition outcomes section, we added something else here. We we made a correction to the logic here. Advanced training retention, 12 months. So a program graduate who's still enrolled in an advanced training program in clean energy construction building trades after 12 months. There was a discrepancy with how people were showing up in there. Some that were not at that 12-month threshold were showing up. So it was just really pulling in everybody who had other training as a transition outcome rather than that 12-month benchmark there. Okay, and the other update that we pushed out last Thursday is in the demographics report. Really, it was just enhancing the speed in which it would pull back the results. So if you're in this demographics report, when you're filtering, and searching, it should be coming back much faster now to pull all of this back. Okay, so those are the updates that went out, and I'm just going to take a quick look here to see if there's any updates I want to note that we're currently working on that are going to go out. They're forthcoming here. Um, I want to make sure we have time for everything else for our call today. Okay, I don't think anything. I think we can wait until next week to go over those updates. But before opening it up to questions, I do want to circle back to cohorts. Let's see. Let me log in as a super admin here. Okay, I can see everybody. So we did push out the update that is now in production that, for assigning customers cohorts, that's no longer through the intake tab, but through the career plan. And we've updated the services, the training service templates to include a tab for cohort that can be selected. We open up a couple other things here. So if I'm looking at Bridget here, community partnership plan that works. Okay, so let me go to a service here. Oh, yeah, this looks like a older one in test. Let me add bridge training. Okay. So we now have in production that if for our training services, we can assign a cohort to, or we need to assign a cohort to our customers here. So when we try to update it, we'll see if it's not already assigned that we get this prompt here. A cohort's required for the service. And so we have this add cohort button here, and we have our list of options here. Now, this customer is with Community Partnership. That's their provider for ClimateWorks. And so the list of cohorts that are showing over here currently are only the cohorts that have been added to, and this wasn't as good an example. I should probably look at Zion College. It's only looking at the cohorts that are added to the work plan for that grantee. So let's say, for instance, I have, so in test community partnerships, the parent grantee, Zion College is the sub grantee. If I have entered, project work plans and cohorts for community partnership, the parent grantee, and I have a customer in the sub grantee, if I have their, service open, I'm not going to see any of the cohort options that the parent grantee added. And I think, so essentially the only cohorts you're going to see are, if that, what grantee that customer is tied to in that work plan, the name of that, they're only going to see the cohort options for that provider's cohorts that are included in their work plan. And I don't believe we have any of our regional administrators on the call today. I believe they're at an in-person event. Yeah. But there are a couple grantees who reached out, saying they weren't seeing, certain cohort options, and maybe better show this if I open up a new window here and log in with someone who has a little less. So Zion College, for instance, their work plan, they are District 3. So in their work plan, they have one work plan, and these are the only cohorts added. So someone up over here on another screen. It's there. Okay. Um, let's make sure here. I actually might have to kind of pause that here because I'm also seeing now some other cohorts that I don't think I would necessarily expect to see unless I've given this user and test more access to another organization here. Yeah, so I guess the essentially there's some we might still have to do some more updates to these cohorts to make sure they're what you would expect to see, but for now, I will say that, if you don't see, the cohorts here, if there's, a cohort that's not showing, it's because it's not in, the project work plan that was submitted. And if it gets added to it, then, it would then show up over here. But I just wanted to note that because there were some help requests and some emails that came in. But yeah, we are meeting with the regional administrators tomorrow, and I can, bring this up with them and any questions that people might have. But I will stop there and open it up to any questions that anyone might have before we get into the demo portion of this morning's call.
Hi, David. It's Savannah with Hire 360.
Hi, Savannah.
Hi. So I just wanted to confirm we probably won't have a solution until probably after tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, for the cohorts, just because it's stopping us from completing.
Mhm.
And then another question I have is that, is there a list of updated list of contacts for the hub or just for us anywhere on the website? Just because when it comes to transfers, sometimes it's a little bit easier to just reach out if anyone has missed the email or didn't receive it or.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say I was going to say I don't think I've made any recent updates. Someone else internally might have, but on um, the CEJA website that we have, and this is a ongoing pages that we'll need to update. But and maybe now is I think is a good opportunity to bring this up is for the program pages that we have on the site for we got Climate Works, Workforce Hubs, Navigators. The contact information you see here, if this does need to be updated, send me an email and I can get that updated. We have the point of contact listed here. I'll copy some of these links into the chat here. That way we can have the most up-to-date information here. But yeah, in those cases where you may not hear back because like you said, they might there's a chance it could go to their spam or junk folder, or maybe just lost among other emails here. Copy and paste is being very weird. Sorry. That yeah, you can send an email to your regional administrator and copy me on it. That way, I'm also aware. Because when there's some situations like that, or maybe the staff is no longer with that organization, we can kind of go ahead and process that transfer through. So yeah, I would say if you haven't heard back, start. I haven't heard back in a little bit. Send the email to your RA and you can include me on it, and then we'll go from there and make sure that transfer gets processed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get these right URLs for our contact listing here, but Teams is being very, very strange right now. But yeah, in the CEJA website here, I will say, when you open up this menu in this corner here for students and job seekers, we have links to Workforce Hubs, Navigators, and Climate Works. returning residents. But yeah, if the contact information, I would say to, go there. If the contact information needs to be updated, you can send me an email of what needs to be updated, and we'll get that updated too. Okay, let me pull back our window here. All right, are there any other questions? All right, well, if not, we'll go ahead and go to the demo portion of our call today. And if anything does come up, we can enter it in the chat, and I think we'll have some time before the end of the call for questions as well. But let me go back here. So for intake, we'll just walk through the process of adding a customer and completing those parts in the system. So on our customer list page, we can select the button for add customer, and we can enter in the required fields. So we'll enter in name, date of birth, phone number. I guess that's optional, but email address as well. And then the address information. Type, say inquiry, provider. I am logged in as Climate Works. So I'll go ahead and click submit. And we will check the box for the application consent and click save. And then we'll reach our pre-screening window here, and we'll just answer our questions here. If you do want to add any notes, there are a lot of required fields here, but if you wanted to add a note just to save some information, you can enter that here. Test note, and that will be saved right here as a contact note. If at any point, while they're in inquiry, if they decide they do not wish to be contacted anymore, you can check the box here, and that will update their status. Do you need any accommodations to complete this pre-screening or application? If so, when we select yes, we have a text field where we can enter that in there. But then some of our information that we entered in the previous window is going to pull through here for name, phone number, email, date of birth, and then address information a little further down the page. So then we'll just answer our other questions here. How'd you hear about the program? Are you interested in working in construction or building trades? Are you interested in working in the clean energy field? Along with some examples here. And if we select yes, we get a sub-question, which is the following clean energy industries are you interested in learning more about? Are you interested in applying for an apprenticeship program? Are you willing and able to put in the time required by the program? And a little note here to describe the time commitment for programs. You may have challenges that make it difficult to participate in the training program. You're referring to those support needs that will identify in the service needs assessment or barriers that we can help address. So asking, are they experiencing any barriers that would keep them from attending the training? So we have our address pulling in here, and then some other eligibility questions for our programs. Have you ever been incarcerated for a felony or misdemeanor? Have you had prior involvement in the criminal legal system? Graduate of foster care or currently in foster care? Are you a displaced energy worker? Do you have other barriers to employment? And so if we insert these here, go on page. To our demographic information section, what racial or ethnic groups best describe you? Veteran status. And then do you have a high school diploma, GED, or high SED? And we have our kind of little area here for customer pre-screening results. And so this is looking at, all eligibility criteria, across our programs in the system, and depending how we answer them, yes, no, or prefer not to say, that will display down here. And below this, we have our table here that, based on how we answered, here's our programs, and here, which ones that we're, eligible for. And so we can see, in this case, we're eligible for all of these except for returning resident. And so then this program dropdown will select ClimateWorks, and then pre-screening results, or interested in participating. We'll enter today's date for pre-screening. And then if we wanted to add a follow-up date or additional notes, we could enter those here, but we'll click submit. And this will bring us to our add applicant window, where we're just going to confirm the email address. 6. And so then we'll click search for existing applicants, and that will check to see if there's an existing account in the system, outside of the CEJA program, and if so, to submit a help request ticket. And then that will go to me, and then we'll troubleshoot and get those accounts updated so that you can proceed to the application. But in this case, we can see a new account was created, and here's the username and password that the customer can log into their work account with and sign the application. So we'll go ahead and click the button to complete initial application. And this will take us to our application page. We have a lot of information that has pulled over from pre-screening, so we'll just need to fill in a few other fields. Do you have a social security number? If we say yes, then we can then enter that number. Once it is entered and saved, the system is only ever going to display the last 4. It is kind of encrypted and protected that way. We have had in some cases that, I know we had that account check and sync in the just a moment ago, but sometimes based on the perhaps participation in another program, or when someone create an account outside of this, you sometimes might see a message if you enter the social security number that there's another account has this social security number, you're not able to proceed. That is an update that we're going to have to do, but it's a little, it's kind of very complicated on how we want to kind of execute that behind the scenes. So for now, you can just select yes, but I don't have my card. And if we need to come back and update this later, we can do so. But just a heads up, because there have been some help requests about that specific issue. But let's see, what else? After address, we have our phone number that we'll need to enter the primary phone type. We can also enter an alternate phone if there's another number that they can be reached at. What sex were you assigned at birth on your birth certificate? How do you currently describe yourself? And are you authorized to work in the US? And then with all of that, these are other questions in the pre-screening. Then we can just take a look at application submit date. This is going to default to today's date, but if we needed to change it to yesterday or another date, we can do so here. But then we'll click save and go to next page. And this will take us to our eligibility check. So we can see for ClimateWorks, we are eligible for the program. We're meeting both sets of criteria here for has high school diploma, GED, or HiSED, and authorized to work in the US. And then at least one of these needs to be met for R3, we're living in an R3, or EJC, is formerly incarcerated, or in foster care or graduated from. And then at least one for the age groups there. So we'll click continue to intake, and this will take us to our application summary page where you can see all the information we've entered. If we needed to go back and update it, anything in here, we can select this return to demographics and contact info, update, and that'll just take us back to that application form. But then here we can sign the application. And so we're logged in as a case manager, so we can select the button here. We can enter our workNet username and password to sign it. We can also copy a link and send to the customer to sign it virtually as well. They would enter their username and password to sign it. And we also have the option to upload a signed application. So if we uploaded a paper copy, and we can choose that, select this choose file upload to attach it, and then enter a date for the signature. But we will do this option here, entering username and password, and then when we click sign, we'll see that the name with the account on file has been added here along with today's date for the signature. All right, so click return to intake. And so this will take us to our intake tab for number 1, complete application. With pre-screening information, we can see what we entered here in pre-screening. And then view application completed on 7/8/2026. That's just going to take us back to that summary page where we signed the application. And we can also see the date that we completed and signed it in the system. If funds were required for completing intake, we did have that question at the top of the pre-screening, if there's any accommodations needed, perhaps there were. If there were funds that were used for that, we can check the box here and enter a case note just to track that information. It's here. And then we'll go to the next part on intake for adding a career assessment, I believe. Yes, okay. So we'll add a career assessment. So we have the assessment date. What is your current or most recent employer status? If it's I've not worked before, this will be my first job. It's going to be hiding a few of these questions here. I believe it'll hide hourly wage, the employer name, the start and end dates, job duties, and reasons for leaving if applicable. Yep, so that'll hide those there if this is their, this would be their first job. And then for, employed or self-employed, those questions will remain. And also employed to receive notice of termination or layoff. And then we also have 2 other options for unemployed and actively, and then not actively looking for work. When those are selected, we do require the end date, and the guidance has been to enter their most recent employment information here if either of those 2 unemployed are selected there. We'll say in this case, this will be my first job, and then we'll answer the following questions. Some jobs have lifting requirements. Please indicate whether you're able to lift this amount of weight. And then many of the apprenticeship programs require people to stand for long periods of time. Please indicate whether you're able to stand for long periods of time. And then career goal and secondary career goal, they're going to have the same list of options in the drop downs here, but we'll just check the option for career and then secondary career goal. And then down below, we have other specific careers you're interested in pursuing. Select at least one from the checkbox for solar and wind, automotive, EV focus, electrical, green building construction, and manufacturing clean energy technologies. And then we also have one more checkbox. I'm interested in learning about clean energy careers. And once we have our assessment filled out, we'll click save. And the page will refresh. And we'll see our career assessment's been added here. When we click that, we can see that summary information. All right, number 3, complete screening for service needs assessment. So if there were any, barriers or, challenges that they may be experiencing, like that question we had in pre-screening, that might, impact their participation in the program, we can identify that here in the service needs assessment. So we have accommodations and our questions for accommodations, student services, technical or technology assistance for virtual learning, transportation, childcare, family member care, assistance with housing, food, healthcare, legal assistance, financial literacy, mentorship, application fees, and other support services. We won't go through every question individually, but if we answer them in a way where assistance would be needed, so let's say maybe childcare, family member care, yes, for when you require any assistance. We'll get a checklist here, select all that apply, and we'll then select the one that is needed here. So maybe financial assistance with childcare. And when the checkbox is selected, we'll get a recommendation there with links to different sites that you may be able to provide assistance. And they're different for each one. What we see here for childcare is obviously going to be different from what we see in transportation here. But if it's something that we, our organization can't assist with, but we can refer them to another, we can check the box for sending a referral. If it's something that we can provide in-house support for, we can check that as well, and then we'll then capture that cost information with the barrier reduction service that we would enter in the career plan. But in this case, we'll say a referral. And then we have a text box here for any additional comments or context that you could that you'd like to provide. And let's see, maybe we'll also we'll say yes for healthcare and financial assistance for physical or mental health services, counseling. So perhaps we are able to provide in-house support for some of these items here. We can check those applicable boxes. And then we'll just fill in the rest of this here. And once we have all that entered, we'll click submit. And this will complete the service needs assessment, which we can then see what we've entered here. If we select the text here, this will bring up a read-only view of it. But if we needed to make any changes to this, maybe, oh, they don't need a referral for childcare after all. If we click this green icon, that will allow us to edit and make that update when we make the change and click submit there. And then before going down further, I do want to open up our progress page and refresh this here. Okay, so for intake, we can now see that it was yellow a second ago, but we've completed the career assessment and service needs assessment, so this is now good. Referral status, because in the service needs assessment, we said we would need to send a referral for the customer with assistance with childcare. This has now been flagged as needing attention. They'll need to send a referral. And let's see. And for those items that we said under healthcare in the service needs assessment that we would provide in-house support for, prescriptions and eyeglasses, the systems, flagging that here, that we'll need to add that to through the career plan with a barrier reduction service. And let me see here.
I do have a question there whenever you get a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Well, yeah, we can answer. Question.
Yeah, so this is Terrence.
Hi,
I just had
Terrence.
a question on that career assessment part.
Mhm. Yeah, is it this one here?
Um,
Or the service needs
yes,
assessment?
no,
This
you're
one.
right. Um, yeah, so it's on that page there. When you select what is your current most recent status,
Mhm.
um, some of those are kind of confusing to me because they uh, they may have a job or that they don't have a job, but they've been looking,
Mhm.
and it says that, but then it asks they don't have a job, but then you have to put in an hourly wage and an employer name as a required field.
Yeah, and for these options, this is looking, or what for the unemployed options, this is at the guidance from the regional administrators have been entering the most recent employment information. So, kind of their last employment. But if they didn't have it, then we could just select I've not worked before, and it would hide those questions there.
Yeah, but most of them seem like unless they're fresh out of high school, but most of them have already worked before somewhere down the road. It might have been 5 or 6 years ago, but they're unemployed and they've been actively looking. I just didn't know what to put in for the hourly wage or the employer name. Then you didn't know like a start date or an end date. I just didn't want that information to hurt the applicant whenever they're doing this career assessment or placements.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there is. So I'm just trying to think of any reporting that we currently have. I don't, I think the system is really only looking at, at the moment, whether or not a career assessment has been submitted. I don't believe in any, reports that we have that it's looking at, what was specifically entered, in these career assessments or in these fields.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, because a lot of them are just when I speak to some people, they may have known their employer's name, but they can't remember a start date or an end date.
yeah.
So we just put in something just to get past the fields.
Yeah, I'd say,
Because
maybe in
with it
those
being
cases,
a required field, it just makes it kind of hard on that part.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think we haven't had a usual administrator join by chance, have we? No, okay. Yeah, I can add that as a note, to, mention to them. Employee option. So yeah, I don't know if, an approximation is okay of, kind of those date ranges, or if, maybe we just need to make those,
Not
uh,
required.
yeah, not required. Um,
Yeah, because the employer name it just could be unknown hourly wage. I think I try to do unknown, but it wants a numeric number.
yeah. Yeah, I'll see what the RAs have to say about that. I think if we do make it optional, that would be a, easy enough update for our programmers to make, because yeah, I can see why they may not have that information at the ready.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yes, a question about the service needs assessment. If a participant needs assistance with transportation and we assist them with supportive services, does the system see that the service has been met? Because I have seen it where they have received service, but it will still show yellow. I see a disconnect. Looks like there's another issue too. Okay, yeah. So let me find an example of that. So, well, yeah, let's do that one. So if we edit this and go to transportation, we'll say maybe that one for that. We'll click submit. We do have a document that kind of shows that connection between, because yeah, we can enter the costs and then that would be addressed, but then in some cases, like there's if a support service is added, then it'll say, service need has been met. Let me pull up that document here. And then it still might show yellow, which I think I know why that might be the case. But I want to get this document pulled up first. I think it's this one, service needs assessment and service alignment. Yes. Okay. So let me wait, the copy and paste will work here. Okay, it worked that time. So this is a document that I just added in the chat here. And let's take a look for specifically. So transportation. Um, service. Oh, okay. I see. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So in this case, we said for transportation, public transit fare cards. This is unless I don't have the right example here, corresponding referral, corresponding service. Child care. Well, maybe I'll try the child care assistance one. Yeah, let me open up our career plan here. I pull this over here so I can look at it a couple different ways. Okay, so to support. I think that's what we want. Um, Sorry, I'm gonna open up another tab here. I might not have the whole list of services here for this grantee and test. But what should be happening, as far as the flags go, while I'm looking for this, what should be happening is on the progress page, when, either the corresponding service is added or the cost information is added, it should be, pulling through here, either with that number or, service item's been addressed. If it's still yellow, then that is, unless there's an issue with something else, but if it's still yellow, that would be because I know I've been saying barrier, but I meant wraparound support service. My program's mixed up, but that would be because when we enter a cost here, there is a radio button for short on time here. For is this a cost estimate? So for each cost, well, let me say this, if any cost has yes selected, that is causing a yellow flag over here. So if you have all your costs entered, it's still yellow. That's because one cost entered has yes selected as a cost estimate. And that's just the system's way of flagging that we need to come back in here and make sure that the cost, is in fact correct. And we can, update that by selecting no and saving. And then that would, once, all the cost estimates are changed to, no, then this should be green. And I was hoping to have an example for, that other for, service item has been met. But I don't think I'm finding the right service here. Unless I can find this in the last second. No, but yeah, there are services and included in that document added in the chat that should identify, which ones, those corresponding services that'll show up in that, right here as, being met. So yeah, if either the service is added or the cost is added and the cost is not an estimate, then this should be green. But if it is yellow and, it still doesn't look right to you, go ahead and submit a help request, and then I can take a closer look and see, what might be going on there. We have 1 more minute left. Are there any other questions? All right, well, if not, we will end the call here. I will get the recording posted to our partner guide page, and if anything comes up, reach out either through email or the help request system. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your day.